residents over 6 years. Again, 6 months.
That's 7-8 for the.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 23rd, 2023 Council meeting of the Village of Lytton. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to turn off their video, mute their microphones, and to allow Council to begin proceedings. Just to let you know, we're all being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If you or anyone is looking for a video recording of this meeting or past meeting, you can go to the Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you very much, Mayor Connor. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. I call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. So welcome, everyone. We're here for the first regular council meeting in the parish hall in the Village of Lytton. So happy to be doing that. And it's so important to recognize that we're here on the traditional and unceded territory of the Nlaka'an people. So I'm here this evening. I'm here with Councillor McCann and Councillor Lightfoot. Unfortunately, Councillor Toss and Councillor Michelle are on the other side of the closed highway, but they are, of course, here on Zoom. I'm also here with CAO Diane Momberquette and Recovery Manager Mike Blaschuk. So great. And of course, this is an in-person meeting, and so we do have some members of the public, so welcome to them as well. So we're going to move right on to item number 3, which is adoption of the agenda. And can I please have a motion made to do so? I'll move that. Councillor McCann and a seconder. Councillor Lightfoot, although there's no additions. Nope. So all those in favor? Thank you, and carried. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting that was held on August the 9th. Regular council meeting, let's have a motion, please, to adopt those minutes.
So move, Councillor Lightfoot.
Thank you. A seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Were there any errors or omissions? No, seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. This is a little different for me because I'm looking at the Zoom camera. I'm going to get lots of neck exercise tonight. So we'll move right on then to item number 7, which is public comment on matters relating to the agenda. And I'm going to turn it back over to CO Batman.
Thank you very much, Mayor Connor. Members of the public are now invited to comment on matters related to the agenda. If you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom, or if you're in person, please stand up. You can find that hand raise function at the reaction at the bottom of your screen, and then click raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and we'll ask you to unmute yourself. You'll get a pop-up on your screen and you'll be able to unmute. You have about 2 minutes to speak per speaker. And we ask each speaker that they state their name, address, and agenda item number they're speaking for each comment. If you want anyone who'd like to speak, please use your raise hand function or raise your hand if you're in person. We have a speaker at the back of the room, Mayor Connor. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm Ernie Wagner, formerly from Agassiz, now Lytton. That's 1324 Botanic Creek Road. And I'm going to speak on the recovery or rebuild, I should say. Oh, yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. There's been so many roadblocks put on for this community. And the Premier talked today, and their roadblock was travel restrictions, which was quickly removed. And Lytton has had so many roadblocks, and it hasn't been removed. And I think there's just one more, and I implore the Commercian Heritage Committee to quickly remove theirs and approve everything to go ahead with the rebuild. Lytton is everybody's town. It's not just the members here in the community. It's everybody's town, and we want to rebuild it again, maybe even better than it was before. It's a meeting place for all the bands and the town. And I'm here now for the rebuild, and I just want to go back as it used to be. I know it isn't going to be built that way, but the people, most of the people are still here, and that's what matters. So I just want to be here until it's rebuilt, and I think we just need to all get together, and it will be done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner. Is there anyone else either in person or on Zoom that would like to ask a question or make a comment? Please use your raise hand function so that you can speak. Once again, if anyone would like to speak, please use your raise hand function on Zoom or raise your hand in person. Mayor Connor, there are no other hands raised on Zoom or in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CO Badman. So we'll move on to item number 8, staff reports. And
You're frozen. We'll just wait until Mayor Connor and the rest of council is back. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Thank you very much. Go ahead again, Mayor Connor.
okay, yeah, just to let the public know that's listening, our Wi-Fi here is a little bit unstable. So if we freeze a couple of times, that's why. I'm just going to now turn it over to Mike Blaschuk.
Thank you, Mayor. You get the PowerPoint presentation up on the screen.
Can you see it, Mike?
Oh, there we go. Okay, sure. Can we get to the next slide? Okay. No, I can't see it.
Are you able to share the screen for the PowerPoint?
Oh, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
Yes, no
Just
problem.
1 second. I pressed something and it didn't work. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, if we could proceed to the next slide. Most people will have seen this, but some won't. It's a good one to again remind people that the first phase of the project was primarily focused on site cleanup, remediation, and archaeology. We'll still, now that we're sort of in the second phase, we're still working on some of those areas, but really the shift will be on getting utilities and services going, housing, and then starting to prepare the recovery for business and government service for our roles in that. So next slide. So cleanup, remediation, and archaeology. It says here we've finalized remediation for most sites, and we've been finalized for a number of months already. We've finalized archaeological work for both sites. We've been finalized that for a number of months already. Okay. We have submitted a work plan for Zone 1. We did the original 8 lots. We resubmitted for all of Zone 1 now. One of the lessons is avoid Swiss cheese. Do not try and do pieces of it. Try and do it all at once. We bring the gravel all and spread it out in front of us as we go forward, which means different machinery will be on the site. That's been submitted. It's been approved, and we are ready to commence work. We are scheduled for Monday startup. We have the construction team mobilized. We have the archaeological company has committed to us that they will have their monitors on staff. We've had the geotech out here. We've been cleaning the last bit of organics off the site because we have to get it cleaned off in order to be able to compress it. And so we are scheduled to start Zone 1. Zone 2, the work plans have now been completed for that one. And we anticipate submitting Zone 2 now for this coming Tuesday for approval. So that will give us 2 zones ready to start moving on. We know zones 3 and 4, we're waiting for the management decision letters have been written. They're in peer review between the archaeologists looking at them. And once those get finalized, we'll be submitting those for work plans as well. So the intention is to keep going. At the same time, I understand Ernie's frustration. I have to tell you, I share that frustration. We've been essentially stopped for about 6 weeks now. 2 of those times, there was no quorum at KHC. People just simply didn't show or weren't there. And there's no structure that lets us have a proxy. We cannot get any decision. And as such, we stop for another week with no decision. When we ask about the terms of reference, we're told there isn't one. When we ask about, well, how does voting work? Isn't that in the terms of reference? There isn't one. Well, who determines quorum if there's no terms of reference? Well, there isn't one. So it's been a frustrating session for us as well as anybody else. It doesn't mean we stopped. I mean, we've been working on the waterworks. We've been working on clearing most of the soil off the ground. We've been pushing hard on getting those other soil sites that are out there marked. We can finally remove them. Now we've got the last of them in the town now marked, so we can start now removing those now too. We've continued to push, and at the same time, I do understand the frustration, and I do know how people feel. I'm at my point where it's like, we just do it. And I'm probably going to get myself in trouble for that one day. But this is, we've done everything I think we possibly can. And so for my 2 cents, I'm sorry, that's what it is. So let me go to the next one.
Next slide, yeah.
So we've been working on addressing leaks and temporary repairs in the village. With the issue with the fire, our priority has been to shift to pump up to the reservoir, put water up there, because if we lose power, we can rely on gravity feed, but we got to get the water up there. So that's what we've been focusing on, that, focusing on water quality. There's some urgent tests that had to be done to keep that part functioning and part of it. Also, Brian has been busy with that and doing a great job. To say the Heritage Branch is finalizing their management decision letters now, and the backfilling is commencing and scheduled to commence for Monday. So Mennonite Disaster Relief has been up here several times. They are preparing to set up a camp in September, and they know they're working with one owner right now to prepare for filing a building permit. So they've been requested of us survey companies, and what we're doing, to talk to our geotech. And so, yeah, they're preparing to go. So, so we met with them on the 16th, and I'm in fairly regular communication with them about prepping themselves to get ready. That should be probably our first residential permit that goes through. So, and it's a rapid build project. So, and this is the first one, but they also informed me this week that they're looking at setting up a bigger camp for the spring, because they want to do more projects in the spring. So, and they are planning on having a workshop, information sharing sometime in September here to inform people what they do and see if there's other people who are interested in the program. I encourage people to explore it, see if it fits, because it is an amazing program. They're an amazing bunch of people. So again, for the business commercial, our focus is get the backfill. That means progressing down. We'll progress zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as we move down the street. We know there's been meetings going on Pacific Can to provide, input on the new commercial program. And we talked to commercial owners about where we are updating the project, what their needs are. Dawn's working with council on the applications and supporting the CAO on the funding requirements for projects for the federal government. We do see the parish hall getting, again, increasing use. There's usually not a day that something's going on. There's not some meeting here, and it's kind of nice to see. We've been keeping it open during the day. This fire's been going on. People come in if they want to cool off. There's water in the fridge. I know we've got like 6 people on site clearing right now, so it gives people a chance to get off. So yeah, so that's where we are there. And next one. And so again, that's how to reach us. We do get people reach out to us daily, and we try and get back as quick as we can. Some days we're a little busy on the site, and if you see me driving around with my truck with the recovery manager, feel free to stop me. Feel free to ask me a question. If you want to show me your property and talk about it, I did that today. I spent an hour walking over the property trying to find out some solutions. It's a little tricky what we're going to try and do there, but we'll do that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Councillor Lightfoot.
I know I've heard this numerous times, but it still is muddled in my brain regarding the backfill process. So I know the end of June we aim to start, and it had been hoped that we would be done by now.
Me too.
So I know there were some issues with the initial 8 properties or whatever, and you sent a plan back. So just so I understand the process, can you explain? So correct me where I'm wrong, okay? So you put a work plan together. The plan is reviewed by KHC.
Yes, the plan is reviewed by KHC, who then
Sends it to Heritage.
who they sometimes believe they're approving it. We believe they're recommending it or advising on it. Then it goes to Heritage Branch, who then compares it to the management decision letters. Does our work plan line up with what they've said? And then
Can I slow you down? Where do the management decision letters come from?
from Heritage Branch.
Okay.
So the information comes from the original archaeology work that AEW was done. They prepare a full report on that. That report goes in to Heritage Branch. They're taking that report and they're doing management decision letters, essentially zone by zone by zone. So when they get the management decision letters from that, we look at it, and in conjunction with AEW, who's part of the work plan development, and MAPCOM through LFN Economic Development, is we look at we develop a work plan. That work plan then gets submitted to KHC for review. They have archaeologists on there as well representing NMTC, but there's also LFN members on there. And that then gets reviewed and then hopefully approved. And then it gets approved, it gets sent back to Heritage Branch, who then issues us basically the go-ahead to go.
So the restriction or the slowdown, the bottleneck is the Heritage Committee?
It's been taking an inordinate amount of time to go through there on a back and forth over what I consider relatively small issues.
So just to, I know we've all been pushing to see this happen faster. Just your opinion, and I for what it's worth, is it a partnership or is it just, no, we don't like it, or are there suggestions coming from those other bodies on how you can improve your plan to facilitate a faster execution?
I think it's a lack of focus on priority. The priority is the recovery of the village. It's not an archaeological project. It's not a remediation project. If you don't show up for a quorum, don't bother to show up for a quorum. That throws us off a week. Okay, that's a week we've been delayed on a project. We've got a certain building season. We need to get this in quickly so people can get their foundations. Everyone who wants to be in the village wants to get us done as quickly as possible. The pushback we get are from people who don't live in Lytton, who I haven't seen on the site.
So,
Thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, I did just want to provide one clarification to something that Mike had said, just to make sure everyone understands. So the management direction letters originally were being prepared on kind of a list of properties that had been provided as kind of priority properties, people that were looking to start their building early or first kind of thing. And so I just wanted to clarify, there's some people outside of zone 1 and zone 2 who have actually received the letters directly from the archaeology branch. So and now we're proceeding on a zone by zone basis because it was determined that that would be quicker to kind of execute.
And safer.
Particularly for the backfilling side, but even for the archaeology, like to look at the whole zone together, because a lot of times there's overlapping issues or whatever. So.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah. So I just want to clarify the report, the written report that came in with the agenda said that the concerns raised was unknown whether the KHC accepts these plan amendments, but since that report's been written, you have heard
We have
the
zone 1
confirmation.
approved.
Yes, okay.
That's right.
And you just mentioned that
We
should you
just
get
got it
started on
approved on
Monday.
Thursday. Thursday. So we've ramped up our work plan, just ready to go.
Okay. Councillor Lightfoot.
Well, and I'm just curious. I know that we aren't privy to the ARC reports that homeowners have requested, but I do know that within our staff, I believe they have some understanding of people that requested them all received reports, or some people waiting. And in particular, I'm concerned that there's a property in zone 6 that I know was insured and has house plans in and is ready to go. And given the pace of this work, even with a year extension, that poor resident may not be able to make the deadline.
And we have heard from a number of residents who have requested their management direction letter from archaeology branch and have heard nothing in response to that. So I don't think that's an unusual situation. I do believe, or what we were led to believe, was that by going on this zone by zone basis, it would move quickly, but it hasn't been our experience.
No, not yet.
Right?
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCann.
Yeah, Mike, the question that popped up for me was when I get all excited about starting work, would the smoke keep work from starting?
We have a concern that, from any sort of employee safety, you have to make certain it's a safe workplace. It was raised to us a concern from AEW about the smoke and whether that was going to be healthy. We have worked with MATCOM, we've secured respirators, we have safety gear ready for Monday. So it's at that point, our people will be there, MATCOM will be there, we will be having, we will have the appropriate safety gear in place.
Okay, so we'd have to all be evacuated on order to shut things down.
Pretty well.
Saying.
Let's not even say that right now. But, we are prepared, for reasonable issues that could happen. If we hit a full evacuation order, we recognize down to at that point. But we're working on the site now. We've had casual laborers on the site helping us strip the sites for the last 3 days. We're working out there.
Great, thank you so much. So we have a recommended motion here to receive the Recovery Rebuild report for information. Who would like to make that motion? Councillor Toss, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Lightfoot. All those in favor? Yep. And carried. Now we'll move on to item number 8.1.2, which is the Village of Lytton water system upgrades. And I'm going to call on Don Wong to speak to that report.
Hi, all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This morning? Thank you, Mayor Connor. If I could jump right in, if that's okay, just to give the context. Village of Lytton's water requirements and water permit, there's an issue by Interior Health. To comply with Interior Health, there are certain provincial standards for water quality. And I apologize for folks that all know this, but I thought it should just be give a context, a general thing. Pre-fires, a lot of the systems within the village were a bit out of date, and they didn't have the level of redundancy for provincial compliance, right? And what we're doing right now is trying to bring it up to proper standard and compliance under IHA, so Interior Health Authority. Those requirements are the water treatment plant has to meet water quality requirements. So lab testing is done every Wednesday by Public Works, just to make sure the bacteria counts are good to keep water potable. The system itself as a whole has to be flushed, chlorinated, and tested. That's part of the Wednesday testing. And there's appropriate monitoring within the system. Just to give folks a bit understanding, the upper reservoir and lower reservoir are both operational. Well 2 is also operational, and well number 3 was repaired by LFN recently. Right. If you look at the system upgrade, oh, sorry, does anyone have any questions, or may I keep going?
Keep going, please.
If you look at the system overall, we've broken it up into, just explain, there are the infrastructure, these are the capital physical works that needs to be done. First, it's the repair of the linear assets, which is essentially the piping and stuff in town. The analogy or old parable that we've been using is it's like putting new wine into an old wineskin. Every time you put it in, you find some new leaks, right? And that's kind of what's happening. You know, all the kudos should go to Public Works because they've been able to repair the biggest leaking linear piping asset was the water main on Ponderosa. Now that that's repaired, it's running at about 90% capacity. This is pre-fire, of course. And work was done by Public Works in partnership with LFN. The other part, what that has done is it's exposed additional leaks, like I say, old wineskin within the village, that we are going to be working on. If the fire wasn't there, it would be this week, but likely in the next week or two, with an idea of bringing in some support contractors that we've already lined up to help us with all the repairs and try and do them all at once. The second piece of the piping is there will be some new lines put in to replace old ones, and we're working on that piece as well. We'll give you an update hopefully at the next council meeting. In terms of the other infrastructure that needs to be brought up to date, it's the water treatment plant. And that's really, we're talking about the communication systems. I understand that the backup generator that we've been waiting for just got delivered today, which will hopefully be set up soon. As that gives us the redundancy in terms of power in case we ever lose power and the water can keep going. But the systems themselves need to be replaced in terms to allow us to continue monitoring the water quality remotely and with support from other groups. In terms of the operational requirements, we need to commission well number 3, right? So just for context, everyone knows that well number 3 is on, I believe, IR 18. The agreements that were in place have all expired, and we're in the process of developing new agreements. In the interim, we've already spoken with LFN. They've agreed to set up an interim agreement so we can connect well number 3 back to the system to begin the back flushing and whatnot. The only delay is obviously administrative at this point because they have some other evacuation and other issues, obviously, that are more pressing this week. But we're hoping we can get that interim agreement and start the reconnection and commissioning of well number 3 as soon as possible. As well, for part of that will allow for the monitoring as well when we begin as part of the agreement, because as a lot of folks know, to qualify under interior health compliance, we need a level 2 certified water operator overseeing our system to hold the water permit. Currently, that's being held by a fellow named Kevin Vilak, that's with the city of Merritt. And I have to give a shout out to Kevin because he's been stand up in support of the village throughout this whole process. And really, it's coming out of the goodness of his heart, to be blunt. And we're working toward trying to get our own water operator. LFN does have a level 2 certified water operator that we're hoping we can transfer the permit to, but that's going to be part of the service agreements that we have to sort out. Right. And administratively, like I said, we are working on to it. It's getting the interim agreement to commission well number 3, hopefully sooner than later. An updated municipal type service agreement. That's the new term, MTSA, between the village and LFN, right? This will allow the system to fully operate, and hopefully with LFN supporting us with their level 2 operating certified water operator, as well as an annual report and water master plan. In terms of next steps, like I say, we're trying to do all the repairs in terms of the leakages. We've slotted, we're hoping to, we booked the work to happen mid-September now. Things have been delayed, obviously, because the folks that are helping us are in Kanaka Bar and can't get over here. And that's where we're at. Is there any questions?
Great, thank you. Yeah, are there any? Councillor Lightfoot?
Thank you, Mayor. Dawn, I know you're talking, you said 2 reservoirs, and I know we're going to do a tour of the water system next week, but if my memory serves me well, we do have 3 reservoirs, don't we?
I believe I will have to double check. Honestly, I apologize again.
No, that's fine. I just was wondering if I had a bad memory or, but next week we'll check that out. And I know that a lot of what you're talking about is getting the system up and running, the system that we have now. But I wonder, is there any plan in the future to reinvestigate well 1? Well 1 historically supplied the majority of the water for the village. I believe that its flow was equal to both well 2 and 3, but at some point, maybe a decade ago, it was decommissioned because it's in a vault, and the confined space regulations made it difficult to maintain. But as we're reconstructing the village, it may be an important source of water, even if it's a secondary source of water for just irrigation. So I'm hoping that you put that on your list for future investigations. It's right behind where the hospital site was. Unfortunately, it's almost on the street, close to the TELUS building. So is there any mention of that in any conversations that are being had, or has it been put on a list for further investigation? I guess is my question.
I believe it is on the list for further investigation, and ironically, it's not part of this report, but next week we're updating the water plan to include not just existing systems, getting everything back online, which is the focus of this report, but also expanding the water system to allow for additional flow. I do believe Reservoir 1 is part of all that, and there is supposedly another source as well that's being talked about. I have to apologize, I'm not a water engineer. I'm just relaying the information. I'm just a number cruncher. But the idea really is get the water going, make sure it's in compliance, and then go to step 2, which is expand the water system so the village and the surrounding community won't run out of water in situations like this.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from any council? No, doesn't look like it. Thank you so much, Dawn. Okay, we'll move on to, we have a motion here to accept his report for information. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll also move that.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. A seconder? Councillor Toss. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Okay, we'll move on to item 9.1. 9.1 bylaws, and I'm going to turn it over to CAO Lumbercamp.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. We have a proposed resolution on the agenda here for council relating to building bylaw 711. And so, as you know from the multiple discussions we've been having, we do have a building bylaw 710, which is a kind of a typical, I would say a typical building bylaw. Covers a lot of the things that are usually seen in a municipal bylaw. Back in 2022, the council of the day adopted a bylaw 711 that included some additional wildfire resiliency measures, I'll say, just for lack of a better term. And the council adopted the bylaw, but then the bylaw was required to be sent to the province for approval for the variations from the building code. That's one of the next steps that needs to happen if your municipal building bylaw has anything extra in it that's not included already in the building code. So the bylaw was forwarded to the province, and they came back with some suggestions, and it was never kind of tidied up and finished off. So one of the things that's causing quite a bit of confusion with residents and with our building staff is, does bylaw 711 apply or doesn't it apply, right? And so the reality is at this time, it doesn't apply. Even though council has adopted it, it's not considered enforceable because it doesn't have that provincial approval for the variations. Given the conversations we've been having and the work that we're doing, it's my recommendation that we repeal that bylaw and remove it off the books rather than seek to amend it to get the provincial approval. But I believe it's not necessarily what we're looking to have in place anyway. So typically what we would do is, when we come across these, what I would call housekeeping items with our bylaws, the corporate officer would bring a whole bunch of them at once and say, council, let's repeal all these things we're not using anymore. But we decided to bring this one separately because of the confusion that it's causing in the community. So that's my verbal report on that. And there's a resolution on the agenda.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Or maybe we should let's put the resolution forward first.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Who would like to make that recommended motion? Councillor Lightfoot.
Want me to read it?
Yes, please.
I move that council repeal building amendment bylaw number 711, 2022.
A seconder.
Seconded, Toss.
Thank you. And now, any comments or questions?
I have comments.
Councillor McCann.
I feel like I spent 12 to 14 months like a gerbil running around in a never-ending circle with this friggin' bylaw and the one before it and the one before that as well. And I remember when we first were elected in November and I went to a council meeting in December, this is exactly what I wanted to do that day, was repeal bylaw 711. But I was so fuzzy and I didn't understand how to do that. And so there you go. We spent another 8 months fiddling around with this stupid thing. So sorry to be so blunt, but I'm happy to support this amendment for this, whatever it is we're doing here.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So Councillor Lightfoot.
I know that before we were sworn in, we all spoke to the council of the day to not bring this bylaw forward, that we had many issues with it. Well, some aspects of it, I personally believe are valuable, such as materials and whatever. Those things can be accommodated in other ways through policy or other bylaws. So I fully, I did mention to someone that this was on the table tonight, and they told me it was the best news they'd heard in 6 months. So I definitely would like to repeal this bylaw.
Good, thank you. And I'd just like to confirm, so people that are looking to apply for a building permit,
Yes,
bylaw 710 is in place.
that's correct.
And that is our building bylaw at this point in time.
That's correct.
So they can go ahead with that.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Great. If there are no other comments or questions, we'll call the question. All those in favor of repealing this bylaw?
Aye.
And carried. Thank you. We will move on to correspondence, which I don't know that we have any on this agenda. So next is verbal reports. So I will begin. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm just so pleased to be here in the village for the first regular council meeting with council and public. So up until last Thursday, I was busy with meetings like TNRD, Gold Country, and some media interviews, conversations with property owners, meeting residents for coffee. Yeah, that was up until last Thursday. And as I was traveling back from Kamloops on Thursday of last week, from a TNRD meeting, I received a call regarding the Nahatlatch or Kukupee fire. Although the village wasn't in imminent threat, it was recommended by BC Wildfire that we go on evacuation alert. I want to thank all of the residents that I was in contact with for their understanding and taking this alert seriously. I didn't speak to anyone who didn't follow the recommendations, such as having their go bags ready by their door. Since Thursday, I've had MP Brad Viss, Minister Bowen Ma, MLA Jackie Taggart all reach out to see how we're doing here in the village of Lytton and if we need anything. With everything else that was going on in the province, I sure appreciated them taking that time to thinking of us and contacting me. There's been such destruction, so many lives affected over the past week in the Okanagan, the Shuswap, Fraser Canyon, up north, the Yukon and Northwest Territories, as well as here in our own area. I know that all of our hearts and thoughts go out to all of those people as they deal with their worries, frustrations, angers, losses, such as we all went through. You know, I sure hope the rain that we saw or that we heard about in many communities continues. I do want to mention that in the Okanagan, those of you listening in, that new teacher that used to live here, Miss Gwendy Lamont, or Miss Lamont, as many of you know her, who, if I remember correctly, has a key to the city here in Lytton, lost her home in the Okanagan West Bank fire. So our thoughts are with her as well. So all of our communities are in this all together, as we have been for the last 2 years, and I believe we're here to support one another. On Sunday last week, we sent one of our fire trucks up to Kanaka to assist with fire protection up there. And we also offered our EOC trailer to LFN for their use, but I understand that they didn't require it. I've been approached by a number of media over the past few days, and many have asked, you know, what lessons have been learned from our experience that could be applied to those going through the recent fire disasters. And I have to admit, I had difficulty responding because I believe that the lessons learned from Lytton aren't over yet. You know, all I could think of was that I hope that they don't, in 2 years' time, I hope they're not at the place where we are, where rebuilding hasn't even started. Yesterday, I was in a meeting with Pacifican and others to talk about the Business Restart Grant of $7.2 million that was announced last year by the federal government. More information will be coming out soon on that, and they said the application process should be available around the end of September or early October. I just today or this afternoon received an email that the Interior Health temporary primary care clinic opening is planned for Wednesday, September 16th. So we're looking forward to that. And just if people haven't read the notices yet, to let people know that this coming Friday's community meeting is going to be postponed because of the fires and the evacuations that are alerts and orders that are happening around the area. So thank you, and that's my report for this week. I'm going to move on to Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I don't have a lot to report, but first of all, my feelings are also with everybody impacted by the recent wildfires, and ever since the Lahaina fire, which has just broken my heart as well. I've been kind of glued to the television, and it's heartbreaking. Thank you for your comments on that, Mayor O'Connor. So our last meeting was August 9th. I was hoping to be in Lytton right now. Obviously, I could not. We had a special meeting on August 14th to discuss archaeology and backfilling. And on August 23rd today, before this meeting, we worked on looking at options for the bylaw and hearing more information on that. And I look forward to being in Lytton next week, hopefully, if everything goes well. And we have an in-person session on the 29th, which I'm looking forward to, with some training on the water treatment plant. So yeah, I think that about sums it up. Thank you to all staff, as always.
Thank you, Councillor Toss. Councillor McCann.
Oh, thank you, Mayor O'Connor. In the last couple of weeks, been doing this and that. On Monday, the 14th of August, I attended the coffee with the council here at the hall. At that session, there was a member from the public who made a presentation regarding Pacific Can. There was people talking about planning input for village buildings. There was bylaw 711 was talked about. That's the only building bylaw. We talked a bit about zoning changes, using the economic recovery plan to encourage investment. Those are just some of the topics that I noted while we were here chatting around. On the August 15th, I came back over and went to the fish camp, which was the 11th annual fish camp that was here at the parish hall. And those couple of days, it was like they were 40-degree days. So it was mighty warm out there, and the fishes were getting canned real quick. So that was a nice thing to take part in. I really enjoyed spending time with people, and the Stein Valley School came, so there was lots of kids, and they were quite excited to be putting their fingers in fish guts. It was great. On Friday the 18th, I attended a virtual meeting regarding the Chief Spentland Park with the Planning Committee. And that particular project is now looking to extend. So they're asking for an extension for the park because they can't start, just like the rest of us. So they're working to get an extension to see that they can get that going early next spring instead of this year. Monday, the 21st, came back over for another coffee with the council, and on that day, there were like 7 members of the public here, and I was surprised because everybody was either on alert or on order, and everybody was pretty tense about fires and smoke, and it was nice to have the chance. I think people were happy just to sit down and talk on Monday. It wasn't like there were burning issues that had to be sorted out that day. So I think that is a good example of how that opportunity for people to come together can be either an opportunity to get something off your chest that's been bothering you about council, or just to visit with your friend, either way. My last final note is that I look forward to seeing our community return to normal operations soon. Dealing with smoke and neighboring fires has been stressful, and it takes its toll on everyone. And like Councillor Toss, I appreciate all the work that the staff is doing on our behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Councillor Michelle.
I don't have anything to report this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lightfoot.
I don't have a lot to report. I just wanted to expand on some of the conversation we had at our coffee clutch on the 14th, when a community member came in and knowing some of the Pacific Can people and being a long-time resident, took it upon herself to explore some of the specifics about the Pacific Can funding. In particular, having talked to people, she estimated that about 1.5 million of the 6.6 million would be accessed given the current criteria. We also had a discussion at that coffee that most of the contractors that have come into town have said that it will cost close to $100,000 more per build just because of the location and the accommodation and
Yeah, I
supply.
sent it to you.
So one of the suggestions was that if the criteria, it's been over a year since they announced this money. People are wanting to build. Inflationary costs just on the rebuild probably are close to $50,000 to $60,000 over materials a year ago. And if this money can really help our citizens, one of the suggestions made was that every building that rebuilds, whether it was primary residence, a residence that was for rentals, insured or uninsured, if she looked at the numbers and figured there was probably 40, if each of those got $100,000 just flat out to rebuild, that would be $4 million. At that point, we're at $5.5 million. There's still $1.1 million left. We were really quite curious about how much money is going towards administration. So I would encourage council, and I hope that the citizenry will talk to us about it, to advocate directly to Pacific Can to change some of their criteria so we can free up this money as soon as possible and get it into the hands of the people that want to rebuild our community. I think that's part of our role as politicians, to advocate that. So if there's any citizens out there that think this is a good idea, I think we would be happy to champion it. On another issue, I passed on the coffee last week. The smoke was too much for me, and I think the smoke really triggers a lot of emotions in people. There's a lot of lack of patience, lack of empathy, sharpness, twitchiness, as my neighbor called it when she was talking to me about it. Twitchiness out there. I just think we all need to be aware that we have to pull together to make it through. I have great sympathy for Wendy Lamont. She was one of the people that received, I think it's called Freedom of the Municipality. So she's actually a voter of our community. And I hope that the people over there can support her just like the people supported us in our time of need. Great staff. It makes things so much easier. We know that we don't have to do it all, that we've got big brains and good energy championing our way forward. So,
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to item number 13, which we are going to be moving into closed session. So I'd like to ask for the motion to be made. That will be from who? This one, Councillor Lightfoot. Would you like to?
oh, I'd like to move that we move it. Oh,
Sorry.
adjourn the council closed the meeting to the public to discuss matters related to our community charter sections 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if it were discussed in public.
Thank you. A seconder? I'll second. Thank you, Councillor McCann, and all those in favor? Thank you, carried. So we're going to now move into a closed meeting. Thank you, all of the public, for attending, and I will turn it over to CEO Bannerman.
Thank you very much, Mayor Connor. That concludes the public portion of the council meeting. For members of the public, thank you for attending today's meeting, and you may now leave.